I would say, especially during COVID, breathe, take time to be thankful and have gratitude and breathe. Hope and know that there is a future and you are strong enough to see that through.
Welcome, friends, to the Entrepreneur Speaks. I'm your host, Kofi Anyumedu. Each week, I host an amazing entrepreneur on their journey, successes, and challenges. It is my hope that we will learn from their experiences as we all work towards living a life of passion and purpose. I am pleased to have a mother and daughter on my show today. Bridgette Mongeon, the man, is a notable artist, writer, and speaker. Christina Sizemore, the daughter, is a marketing consultant by day and a multimedia artist by night. They join me today on the show to share their journey and experiences. Welcome to my show, Bridgette and Christina.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for having us.
So I always start my conversations by asking my guests to tell me a bit more about themselves and their childhood. So let me start off with Bridgette. Can you please tell us a bit more about yourself and your childhood?
Oh, that's a long question or a long answer. But in a short answer would be it was a very dysfunctional childhood, but it brought about a tremendous amount of creativity, which I pull on to this day. So yeah, that's a little answer for a really big question.
Yeah. Christina, how about you? Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and also your childhood?
I think the dysfunction my mom went through in her own childhood and the process of working through that, she taught me a lot about how to work through my own stuff. So from an emotional standpoint, I'm a decently healthy human being. But I think growing up in the household of an artist is a very unique experience, which I didn't really realize how unique that was until I went away to college. And, I was exposed to a lot as a child that most kids don't get exposed to art classes, to art installations, performance art, all of these very creative experiences. And encouragement to be creative as a child, I think, was hugely amazing to my development into an adult. I was allowed to be creative, and I think that that's a very special part of my own childhood.
Oh, that's a great answer. She won't tell you about all Coffee. She won't tell you about all the nude models that she would hang out with.
It's true.
You should have included that. Yeah, I must say, before this interview, I spent time reading a lot about you, Bridgette, and looking at your works, and I was blown by the work you've done, the depth and the beauty of the sculptures you've put up. I was really blown by them. I spent a lot of time watching videos on YouTube, and I was really blown by how skilled you are. Let me ask this question. Did you always want to be a sculptor? Walk us through your journey. What did you have to do? What training did you have to go through? Walk us through that journey.
Well, I wanted to be an artist ever since I could pick up a crayon. So it is a journey of wanting to be an artist. A sculptor, it didn't really come about into my early 20s, just about the time Christina was born. And when I started to sculpt in the beach, it just felt like I was coming home, and I taught myself everything, and I have loved the journey. The journey has been an incredible one. And thank you for the comments about my work. I sculpt a lot of mascots, large pieces, people. I do a lot of portraits. I sculpt dead people. which is a whole nother conversation. I sculpt deceased loved ones. And my most famous is probably the monumental sculpture of Alice in Wonderland's Mad Hatter Tea Party. So, yeah, I've had a really great journey and I love it. I love it.
Did I hear you say you learned sculpturing by yourself?
Yes, I taught myself, and I didn't realize what an interesting or unusual trait that is. But I have taught myself everything. So how to write, how to sculpt, marketing. I'm a perpetual learner, and I think that's to my advantage. And I've enjoyed having that skill. I just don't know how other people live life without that experience of always exploring.
Oh, I see that as very interesting. So what, were you watching videos on how to do it? How do you go about learning this on your own? I always thought maybe you went to an art school and you were taught how to mold clay and bronze. But how did you go about this? How do you go
Well,
about this? I really want to know.
okay, when I have to say, when we're talking about, they didn't have YouTube. I didn't have YouTube when I started. So I would go to the library and I would get books. And I spent a lot of the library was my best friend. And I went to professionals. I think a lot of things, one element of learning that people miss is go find people who do what you love and volunteer. If you want to sculpt, then volunteer to clean a sculptor's studio and do whatever you can to learn those things, so that it's free information. You give your labor and you get information and knowledge in exchange. So I found vendors, and I would have those vendors teach me what they knew. Walked into the clay store and said, I want to sculpt. Show me what clay I get. So that's kind of how it started. And the same thing with writing. I started writing at a very early age, and then I began to do my own press releases. And when the newspapers started printing my press releases word for word, I knew that I had a writing skill. And then I advanced on that and started writing articles in books. But yes, so that's how that started.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you please tell us about some of the projects you've worked on? I know of the famous one, the Alice in Wonderland, and I was blown by that. Wow. Tell us about the other projects you've worked on.
Well, I worked on B.B. King. I've done portrait busts of B.B. King, Willie Nelson, Bill Monroe. A lot of these are musicians, famous musicians in the United States. Penny Marshall, who is a director, and she was an actress for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. It's varied. I am a commissioned artist. I don't go to the studio and create just to create. People pay me before I walk into the studio. So it's kind of a different ballgame than a lot of artists who are going in and creating their work and then selling it in a gallery or hoping to sell it in a gallery.
And I noticed one thing, that with some of the sculptors, your works, especially the BB King and all the other things, I noticed that they had to sit in front of you and you were kind of measuring their face. I found that as very interesting. So, do you have to do that for every client, or you can just use a picture and come out with a masterpiece? How do you go about it? For those you don't get to measure their faces, do you just do it by using a picture or something of that sort?
Yes, using a photograph and even video from people, because I do a lot of deceased loved ones, so you don't have that access. But there is a funny story about the BB King. When I was measuring him, there's a picture of me with the calipers in my lap, and I said, BB, I'm going to have to measure you during this sitting. I'll have to touch you. And he said, oh, darling, you're already touching me. I said, Mr. King, my hands are in my lap. I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, oh, your thigh is against my thigh. And believe me, the thrill is not gone. it's one of the best stories I have for my career. I really love it. He was a great person to work with.
Yeah. And I encourage my listeners to go and watch the videos. She has it on her YouTube channel. I encourage my listeners to go watch the videos. You get to see a lot of videos on the projects she's worked on. I tell you, you'll be blown away by her skill. She's a very skillful artist. So try and watch these videos.
Thank you. If you also follow me on Instagram, I pretty much document anything that I'm doing. So I'm
Okay.
working on a sculpture now of Booker T. Washington, and I'll be documenting that on my Instagram as well. So yeah, thank you for following me.
Sure. And I'll encourage my listeners to also follow her on Instagram. Go check out the great things she's doing. So Bridgette, back to you. You work both as a traditional sculptor and a digital sculptor. Um, Please tell us about these two processes. How different are they, and how do they all work out?
I work traditionally in clay, like you would see with most artists. They go in the studio and they have an armature and they put it on the clay on the armature. But I started working with digital about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. And that means that I would use a few different processes: 3D scanning and something I've already sculpted to enlarge it in the computer, and using that data to enlarge it to a monumental size. And then CNC, which is computer numerically controlled milling. And I use that to get it out of the computer. So the data, the G code is taken, and they actually carve out in urethane foam the piece that I have made small. And I also use digital sculpting in the computer. So there's 3D printing, scanning, sculpting, and milling is the processes that I use, and it saves me a lot of time. I can do more work, which means I can make much more money, and it saves me money. So I don't have to. I mean, it would take me 3 months to build a monumental armature, where it just takes me 2 weeks to wait for it to come back into my studio in foam, and then I can carve on that and add the clay. And there's lots of videos that I have online showing me doing that.
Mm.
And I also wrote a book about it, 3D technology and fine art and craft. It's digital. It's 3D technology and fine art and craft, exploring 3D printing, scanning, sculpting, and milling. And you can find it on Amazon. And it talks about my whole process of how I do it. And it gave me the honor of being one of 19 of 30 most influential women in 3D printing when it came out. So I was really excited about that.
Wow, that's amazing. So let me talk to Christina now. Christina, so you are a marketing consultant by day and a multimedia artist by night. Let's talk more about your career. Did your mother have any influence on your career choice?
I mean, absolutely. And like I said before, creativity was always encouraged. I've always loved art. I've always done art. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and here we have a thing called a magnet program where if you're interested in a very specific career path, you can study heavily in that career path in your high school days. So I was accepted to the high school for the performing and visual art, and it was a very intensive fine art program that I got at a young age. And so I always say it's kind of the equivalent of, you leave with the equivalent of like an associate's degree in whatever you're studying. And so I studied fine art professionally very early. And as I was kind of working through it, digital art was very, very new. I mean, we learned Photoshop 4. I mean, it was really, really early in the digital art world. But I was really drawn to it. I was really drawn to video. I was really drawn to storytelling. Even in my fine art work, which I studied heavily in photography towards the end of my time there, I wanted to tell a story. And as I was looking at colleges, and art colleges specifically go to that high school to recruit, and I'd been accepted to some of them, and I didn't see myself pursuing a fine art career. And I really enjoyed writing, and I started out as a journalism major in college, and happened to take an advertising class and was just incredibly drawn to it. I loved the idea of using art in a visual format, of telling a story, of and a little bit of psychology. And in some of the classes I teach on marketing, I talk about like how you kind of use psychology to your own benefit to sell something, which sounds super awful. But that's what we do in marketing. Like, that's our goal, is to kind of reach the right consumer and tap into that emotional aspect of them. And I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So I ended up changing my major, and that's what I started to pursue. And it's interesting because I was having this conversation with a colleague recently, I was in college, and it was my senior year was the first year Facebook came out, and it was only for college students at that point. So social media marketing, by the time I graduated college and was entering this industry, it didn't really exist. Like, you still had only the traditional medias of print, radio, and broadcast. And there's just been this massive shift in my career and in my industry in the last 10 or 15 years. So it's been a really interesting journey. And I think my mom kind of influenced that advertising journey a little bit when she first started out. Before she became known as the Sculptor, she worked for an advertising agency in illustration. And one of the agencies she worked for had the Bluebell account, which is an ice cream place in Texas. And I remember coloring on all the proofs growing up, and like her putting together these big presentations and stuff, and like spending late nights in the ad agency in the lobby watching, the cartoons on the TV while they finished up proposals. And I have like these really great memories. They also had a hot chocolate machine in the kitchen. And so like, I think like there's these like very early childhood memories of hanging out in an ad agency that must have just like really stuck with me, because this is the industry I'm in today. So yeah.
That's very interesting. You both run Market Creativity. What's the story behind its setup?
Well, marketing is my industry, and as I've kind of walked through this whole journey and to figuring out my niche, I truly have a heart for small businesses. I think they're the backbone of our country. I think they're the backbone of industry. I think, you look at all these really big companies. Apple started in a garage. All of these big companies today all started out as little small businesses. And I think that, the heart behind small business is people who just passionately love what they're doing. And they want to passionately do that thing, but they don't know how to advertise it. They don't know how to sell it to the right consumer. And so and my mom is probably the best self-marketer I've ever met. She is by far better at it than me. Like, she is just really good at it naturally. And so with her years and years of experience in promoting herself and building her business, and then my experience in this industry, we kind of just decided to team up and create this thing.
So what services do you offer?
Personally, I do marketing consultation. So I work with clients to figure out their marketing strategy, implementing that strategy. And that's my business separate from Market Creativity. Together, my mom and I really wanted to share the knowledge that we have. Before COVID hit, I was teaching free small business classes to our community, where people could come in and learn about social media marketing, just very basic, and how to take good pictures for social media. And then we did a class on SEO. We did a class on websites. We did a class on branding, and they were really great. And I saw these small businesses just flourish. And then when COVID hit, we couldn't do it anymore. And so we really kind of worked together and came up with this whole concept of doing these classes online. And so that's really what Market Creativity is. It's supporting small business through online education and teaching how to do these marketing strategies. On top of that, I think one of the things that I loved about teaching in person, and that my mom has loved about speaking and teaching in person, is this like one-on-one support. And so with each of these classes, you get access to a Facebook group where you can post things, post questions, and we'll respond. We've also discussed doing like either a Facebook Live or like a Zoom Live once a month, where people can log in who are our students and just talk and get answers to questions. And we can help them through this whole process of trying to figure out their own marketing strategies.
I think the other element of these classes, though, Chris, was that we really wanted to make them affordable. And when people find out what these classes cost, so what we've done is we've broken them down into small sections. And I don't know what it adds up to in your country. I don't know if it's Rand or whatever that you're working with, but it's only $35 a class, and that's nothing. It is nothing. It's a drop of the hat. But the information.
I actually saw it yesterday that it cost $35 dollars, which is just over 200 CDs in my currency. Yes, so,
yes.
which is very affordable.
Very affordable. Especially when you're getting the communication with your other classmates on the private Facebook group and with us. So we are both really excited. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that this would have come about had COVID not happened. We had both really wanted to do this, but not being able to help other people because we couldn't go anywhere. COVID was what really sparked us to put these together. I'm also going to put together a free class for people, which I decided to do. I've been listening to a lot of people talk about the angst and anxiety that they're going through because of COVID. And I said, I have so many tools that they could use. I just need to make these available. So I'm working on a free class that will be on the site probably by the end of the month. And one of the classes that I'm teaching in the whole group of classes that we're doing, we have lots more to come, but they take a lot of time. So just keep watching the group. You'll see a lot of more classes coming. But one is called The Mindset of Marketing. And it really has to do about our subconscious mind and how our subconscious mind plays into we try to achieve goals and we can't, or you keep saying, well, I've tried to do that over and over again and I keep failing, but there is something happening inside of you in your subconscious mind. So it's really the mindset of marketing as far as changing your mindset and how to do that, to get past that. And also marketers use subconscious to be able to market to other people. So they know how to use that. So I talk a little bit about that, but that's been very fascinating on this journey with these classes as well.
I was going to ask a question later on, but you've brought up a subject matter I'm very interested in, the whole issue of COVID and its effects on your operations. So I believe COVID has had an effect on your operations, whether positive or negative. Can you please share some of these with us? Has it changed the way you do business? And if it has, can you share some of these with our business?
Do you want to go first, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's, when COVID first hit in the United States, I got really nervous. Just as being in marketing, when profits start to decrease, marketing people are usually the first to go when really they should be the last to go. I've seen budget cuts and before and known the next day I was getting laid off from a job. And this was before I was working for myself. So I got really nervous my clients got really nervous. They were really concerned, especially when we got, shut down and they couldn't have people in their offices and their facilities. And I said the other day, I, as a marketing consultant, I no longer just think out of the box. I have to think outside of the box in like the fourth dimension outside of the box. Like it's a whole nother level. There's been, and just from marketing perspective, there's just been a huge shift in how we have to communicate. We saw people like fly. I mean, like the amount of people on the internet, especially right at the very beginning and through the summer last year, it was just, there's a huge amount of people on the internet. Internet presence was massive. We started seeing a lot more webinars and that kind of thing, and just people desperately trying to reach out to their consumer bases. I actually had a client open a new business in September, and all the things that we had planned to do for this grand opening, we could do none of them. And so it's been very challenging to shift gears and think even more creatively on how to reach your consumer. I think, luckily, the clients I do have see my value and understand what I do for them. So I haven't been affected as a lot of people have. I'm very lucky to still have my job and my clients. But again, it has also spurred in my mom and I, we need to make these classes online. We need to be able to reach more people, especially now that we can't in person. And, just the idea that in-person classes, we were only reaching our general community in the Houston area, but now we can reach worldwide and share this knowledge, and this experience is just really incredible and honestly, absolutely special to me. I'm very honored that anybody would, give me the time of day to listen to me. And, it's honoring to me for people to trust me with something so close to their heart as their own business.
Very interesting. Bridgette, do you have anything to add to what she said?
I always have something.
Let's hear it.
So the first thing, I was working on 2 projects. The Booker T. Washington sculpture was for a high school here. And I want to, for those people who are listening that may not be aware, we really went into COVID in March of last year. I don't know when people in your area did, but in March of last year.
It was the same time, March of 2020, yes. So roughly about the same time, yeah.
And we are in Texas in cowboy country. And so we knew that it was really serious when they closed down the rodeo.
Yep.
We knew we had to take it serious because the rodeo was closing. So in March in 2020, I had 2 sculptures that were going and my clients were raising funds. Booker T. Washington was for a high school. Well, you can only imagine a high school who now has to regroup and try to figure out how to have school can't really focus on their project. And so it's been, I'm hoping it'll come back to life. I just handed them their small maquette 3 weeks ago, and it's a larger than life size of Booker T. So hopefully within the next month, that will all come back together. The other one that another client was trying to raise money for was Neil Armstrong. One is going to Russia, and the other is going to Space Center Houston. So trying to raise funds in a pandemic is not the easiest thing. And so I suppose that trickle-down effect has happened to me. But one of the things, or several of the things that I did during this pandemic, and if you know me at all, if you lose one arm, I'm going to tell you how great it is just to have one arm. I mean, I am probably the most positive person. So I was sitting there going, what can I do? And thank you, Christina. She helped me redesign my website, which needed to be done. I had, 10 different blogs all over the internet. And I had to pull all those blogs into one. I mean, blogs that were done before blogs were even on the the internet. So I was able to work on my website. I was able to up my marketing, and then pulling together these classes and being able to do them with my daughter is just the top. And then, of course, the final thing that I've been working on is I am a writer, and I've been working on a new book called The Zen of Business and Carving a Creative and Happy Life. And so this opportunity gave me time that I needed to finish up those chapters. I'm looking for an agent and a publisher for the book. I'm not going to go with my publisher for the last book. And so, I was able to take this time and to reform it and follow other goals that I had really been wanting to do. So although COVID and thank God, none of my family has been sick, but we are very, very, and probably 3 more varies, very careful. And we are still being very careful here in Houston, Texas.
Thank you very much for sharing this with us. I come back to you, Bridgette. You've had an amazing career. Can you please share some of the low moments in your career with us?
Yes, and it's actually why I started writing The Zen of Business, although I've kind of written it my whole life. But I had a low moment, and Christina will probably tell you her part of that low moment a few years ago. And when I was going through it, the thing that I loved to do was slowly becoming drudgery and not fun. And the angst of dealing with interns and clients and projects, it was just something had switched in my brain, and I needed to fix that switch. So I thought, what do I need? I need Zen in my business. And so I kept Googling Zen of Business, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I said, well, I'm going to figure this out and write about it. And one of the things that happened at that time is I had a vendor that went under. And it was for a very large project. And a friend told me a long time ago, the bigger the projects, the harder the fall. And I didn't know what he meant until I went through this, because when this vendor went under, I had $80,000 sunk into the sculpture, and I was not going to find it. And I had to save the sculpture from ruin. And the emotional and mental stress and physical stress that that puts on you is astronomical. So finding ways to find Zen and find peace and find answers and get back on the right track to find out what I was really supposed to be doing was what sparked this book. And so that was probably my low point.
Bridgette, can you share some of the useful lessons you've picked up in your career on this journey? What useful lessons have you picked up, and what lessons would you like to share with my listeners?
Oh, honey, that's a whole nother podcast. The useful lessons I have learned every day, and probably through the techniques in the Zen of Business and some of them that we're sharing in our classes, I have learned every day that when I wake up, I feel like it's Christmas morning. I cannot wait to open the computer and see the email. I get that excitement and anticipation. And I know that good things are happening. And it's okay to reach into want and to try for big things and greater things, but it's also very important to give gratitude and thanksgiving for what you have right now. And I think COVID is teaching us that as well. We have to be thankful for the little things. I think the most profound thing is the effects of the subconscious on both my business, my health, and I'm probably like an evangelist for the subconscious and learning about it and getting over it, because it is detrimental to so many people. And the thing is, it happens 10 seconds before you're conscious of what you're thinking or doing. And so it's taking control of your life. And unless you can figure that out and take and understand it and take control back, your whole life is being guided by something that, you have no control over. So I want to get control and be the leader of my life.
Christina, can you also share some of the low moments of your career with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking through that, I think that there were 3 separate low moments, and it's interesting to me, like thinking back on them and like working through them. They're like the lowest moments and also the highest moments at the same time, which is very weird. But I think the last job I had, where I was actually like employed by someone else before I worked for myself, I was a lead graphic designer and advertiser for a government, state government agency. And I knew that they were voting on funding in our state legislation, and watched the funding get voted out and knew that I would walk in the next day and get laid off. And it was terrifying. We had recently bought a house, and it was all these different things combined. And, through college and even after college, I was always freelancing on the side. And the loss of that full-time position really pushed me into freelancing and working for myself. And I have since. And, it was this very low moment that ended up being this very high moment. Granted, it wasn't like immediately I was super successful at freelancing. I had a long road ahead of me, but that one moment really pushed me into it. I think the other one was becoming a mother and, owning your own business and becoming a mom and trying to I had these grandiose ideas where like, this brand new baby would just sit in this little bouncer and hang out and coo quietly while I was, on client meetings and doing graphic design and all these other things. And that was not the case at all. But I think, and while it was one of the highest points of my life and being a mom, it was one of the lowest points in my career because I could not figure out how to make it balance, but it forced me. And I think one of the biggest things in owning your own business and working for yourself is balance, is understanding that sometimes you have to turn it off. Sometimes you have to be with your family. Sometimes you have to give yourself some self-care and be with yourself. And, when we do something we love and we're passionate about, like it's very easy for it to take us over. But becoming a mom really made me stop. I think the last big down, I wouldn't say negative, but low moment in my career was in 2017. We experienced a house fire, and I officed out of my house, so we lost absolutely everything. My husband, by the grace of God, is alive today. We did lose our dog, but I lost my entire life's work, everything. It was, interestingly enough, I was working that day to get everything uploaded into the cloud and backed up, outside of the 5 external hard drives that I had. But I lost all my equipment. I'd done a lot of professional photography. I lost all of that stuff. And while it was an incredibly emotional journey, and that's something I write about, I've got a blog called strongerthanfire.com, and it's very personal and very much about that experience and working through tragedy. And we had both been diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety, and working through these really intense emotional struggles. And the fire I'd left a candle lit in my house, so I had a lot of guilt, and I had to forgive myself. So it's something I write about. It's separate thing, but something I'm writing about, and hopefully one day will be in a book. But that fire and that experience was an extremely low time in my career. I had to call clients and say I'd lost all of their files. I had to work through that. But what it did, and it's interesting enough, is that fire refines in so many aspects of the world. Fire is a refining process. Fire pressure, we see these massive wildfires, and a lot of times that produces more growth afterwards. And house fire really helped me refine my career and what I really love. And it made me really think through, what do I want to carry in to my career post fire? What are the things that I'm incredibly passionate about? And it forced me to do that. So while it was probably one of the lowest parts of my entire life and the hardest struggles I've walked through, it's really helped me define and refine what I love to do every day.
I'm going to add to that, if it's okay. I love the idea, and I've said this all along, that obstacles can become your best opportunities, but you don't know it until you look at it differently. And I see Christina has said that same thing. And I hate to be the interviewer, but I wonder, Chris, if you say it refined you and you know what you want, how do you get to that point again to refine and to stay focused and not have to have a fire to do it? I'm just curious how that happens.
I think you have to be willing to let things go, even if you love them a little bit, if that makes sense. I think you have to release some things. I was majorly struggling in my career between photography and marketing and graphic design, and that these things that felt very separate at the time, that I had to pick one. And I think one of the things that I realized is that all of those things really play into each other, and that the root of what I love is marketing. And that can involve photography, and that can involve graphic design, and it does involve branding, and it involves all these other things that I love. But to kind of to carve away and allow yourself to carve away some of the things that aren't benefiting you, that aren't where your true passions lie. And I think that that's hard. And, in working with other people in small business, they hold so tightly to this child that is their company and their small business. And I think when I have clients that are able to let go a little bit and to trust me with their marketing, like a lot of these small businesses, they've never had a marketing consultant. And so they hold so tightly, and they want to be involved, and they want to approve everything, and they want to make sure the messaging's right. And I'm like, no, you gotta let go. You gotta let me do my job as your marketing consultant. Let me do what I need to do so that you can focus on what you love to do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It really does. It does. So this question goes to the two of you. Where do you draw your inspiration from? Where do you draw your inspiration to do all that you're doing? Let me start with Christina.
I think my faith I think the world. I very much, I am recharged when I spend time in nature, especially if it's by water. It is something I learned very early about myself. Um, so when I am able to recharge, I am inspired, and that allows me to do the things that I do. And so I think I had a friend recently say, she said, "I love talking to you because you listen so intently. You're so incredibly engaged when we speak." And I said, I am genuinely interested in who you are and why you do what you do. And I think that those conversations with people where I get to kind of hear their heart of what they love, that is so inspiring to me. Like when I hear someone talk about, I had a conversation with someone recently, and she's a life coach, and that's what she wants to do. She wants to inspire people. And like to hear her talk passionately about that was just so inspiring to me, to be like, well, I want to be that passionate about what I do, like that's where my inspiration comes from. So I think it's, my faith, I think it's nature and the world and the earth and all of that. And also just speaking to people about what they love.
Bridgette, how about you?
I'm glad Christina went first. I will say my faith. I also, and it's one of the things I've done in the book, The Zen of Business, and the classes, and I think that we need to find out what makes us tick, what really motivates us, what are our core values. And a lot of people don't know these things. When you know these and you can apply them to your business or your self improvement, it makes all the difference in the world. In drilling that down, I could say that I love sculpting and I love sculpting people. But what I really like to do is I like to help others. And that's been a huge motivator, whether it be sculpting people, speaking, creating classes. I like to help others. I love to, and it follows me wherever I go. I love to develop community, like people who have the same goals, to help encourage each other. I'm also inspired by the people and the subjects. I'm a history nut. I love research. So when someone gives me a project, it's, Booker T. I'm not just sculpting the person. I get to research them. I get to know who they are. How does Booker T associate with another sculpture project of Jack Johnson? Or what did he have to do with, so I'm just fascinated by that. So being able to do the research and in a project, it excites me. The people that I work with, whether they're deceased or not, I've always loved capturing the essence of somebody, not just the look of them, but the essence of them. And that has inspired me. I'm rejuvenated by nature. I lead a Houston women's hiking group, and I love to be outside. I love to garden. And I'm thankful I live in a house during COVID where I can walk outside. I can't imagine living in an apartment during COVID and not being able to go out and piddle in the dirt. So when I don't have my hands in clay, they're in the dirt. So those things inspire me.
So you're both passionate about helping small businesses reach their full potential. And this you do through the support you offer businesses, helping them with marketing, branding, etc. How important is marketing to small businesses?
Chris, you want to go?
Yeah, I think it's paramount. I think it's incredibly important, and I think it's important to define marketing and advertising because they are different. It used to be all in one. Like you did ads, you did print ads, you did radio ads, you did a thing. And now we have this new thing called marketing. And I mean, while I say it's new, it isn't. It's been around forever. But it's important that small business understand that marketing isn't just putting an ad out. It's not just a print ad or what have you. It is really about relationships with your consumer. And that's what sells. It's what's always sold. Word of mouth advertising is the best kind of advertising. It's there's study after study that shows this, and marketing is really about having a relationship with your consumer and reaching your consumer. And so, like I always tell small businesses, understand first what you are. What is your message? What makes you unique from everyone else? And in marketing terms, your USP, your unique selling position. What is the thing that sets you apart from everybody else who does what you do? Because nobody's doing something brand new. We're all, you're a hairdresser. There's hundreds of hairdressers. Why are you the hairdresser people should go to? What is your unique selling position? And then understanding that, so understanding themselves, and then understanding who their consumer is. Who do you want to reach? Who do you want to see in your hairdresser's chair? Who do you want to see in your office? Who are those people? What do they do? Why are they doing it? Where are they doing it? And understanding that consumer base is hugely important to small businesses.
I'm also going to add to that and saying that, as Christina mentioned earlier, marketing, when I started out and I had to go to the library to look up a magazine and then hopefully send them for a media kit that would give me a sample of the magazine so that I could learn about the magazine to see if I was the right fit for that magazine. I mean, things are so much easier now. And people have so much access with just very little bit of tools. They can make such great impact on their business. It's just fascinating to me. And marketing and going into the public relations of it and how other people see you and how you're represented, your platform, what we call it, your platform on it is how you are raised above everybody else and how everybody else can see you. And so, and it's interesting because if you Google my name, you'll probably find, 14 pages of stuff, all different things, but you'll find 14 pages of things. And if people can find you and they know that what you are and what you do, but it's more important, especially I think for me, but Christina, you may admit that it's for all, but as an artist, people buy my work, not because they just like my work, but they like who I am. They like what I see, they see online. They like what they read. And that's what gets them to press that contact form and send me information about their, they want a bear for their school or their father died and they want a portrait. It's that they see. And so you have to be able to present that to people, and the internet makes it so much easier if you have the right tools, because you could also do it very wrong on the yeah. Christina can tell you how to do that as well. I mean, how to keep from doing that. So yeah, so I think that's a very important element or elements.
Mm-hmm.
So how can small businesses improve upon their marketing? Can you offer some advice and tips that they can consider?
I take our classes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is our classes really simplify marketing. I think for me, it's funny because right before our house fire, which is really when I honed in on what I love to do, my husband and I were sitting in a restaurant, and he was like, "Where are you? I can tell you're not really here in your mind. You're thinking about something else." And I said, I'm analyzing this restaurant and what they could do differently, how they could move things around in here, what they could do to market themselves better, and how this menu could be this, that, and the other. And I just sitting there having dinner with my husband, I had this whole marketing plan for this company, and he was like, "You are so strange." And I was like, "No, this is a normal thing that people do. Like, you sit in a business and you rewrite their whole marketing brand strategy." And he's like, "No, no, that's just you." And so, marketing comes easy to me because it's where my brain space is. But I know for so many small businesses, it's this huge looming cloud. And I always tell people, let's simplify. People are like, "Well, I want to be on social media, and I need to be on Facebook, and I need to be on Instagram, and I need to be on, TikTok, and I need to be on Pinterest, and I need to be," and I'm like, "Whoa, man, slow down. First off, where's your consumer? Where's your demographics? What social media are they on? And then figure that out, and then do that thing really well. Pick one thing, simplify simplify, simplify. Because when you're a small business, you're wearing like 30 hats. You're your own, you're doing the thing you love, but you're also, managing the books. You're having to do all the scheduling. There's just so many hats small business owners wear. And, your marketing hat doesn't need to be huge if you simplify and you do things very strategically and with purpose. So, that's one of the biggest things is like simplify. And like I said before, figure out what your product is, what your unique selling position is, and then who you want to sell to. And that's like the sounding board, the jump off place of every other marketing thing. And so my biggest thing is just simplify and take our classes. But really, really simplify your marketing strategy and your brand strategy, and work from that smaller place and then move larger.
And I can't tell you how many times she has.
Do you have anything to add to what she said?
I do. I can't tell you how many times she said, okay, Mom, make it simple. Make it simple. Because I have a lot of tendrils to what I do. And going back to what Christina said a long time ago, and that she didn't see how everything that she was doing came together. I think that as I'm older, I realize that life is a tapestry. And when you're looking at the backside and how everything is woven together, it looks like a mess. But it's not until you back away from it and you can see it from a distance that you see that it's a beautiful tapestry. And so a lot of the talents that you feel like you may need to, like, I've got to do this or I got to do that. There's a way that it can be all woven in together. And that's kind of what has happened with my life. I think that encouragement and accountability are really important for small businesses because a lot of times you're doing it on your own and you don't know what to do, or you only have your partner or maybe your husband or your wife who may not care really, or, a business partner to sound off on. I think that accountability, taking steps and being accountable for that and getting encouragement is important. So again, I'm going to go back to what Christina said, take the classes and get on the Facebook group. And then you'll have accountability and you'll have encouragement. And we also do the classes in a step-by-step. So I do on mine. So you do this project and then you do this project and then let's look at this. I think that also one of the things I would say for me, it has worked wonderfully. I love press releases, marketing, public relations. I just love it because I love people. And so it's an easy thing. I can find a story in anything. But the important element is not what you can get from somebody. It's what you can give back. What can you give somebody? And when you change that mindset and you stop thinking about, oh, I need your money, 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 but you have, you want to give something or offer something to somebody, then that makes a huge difference with what will happen in your life. I think that it's also, there's like a metaphysical type thing there that you're not just taking, you're giving back. And so I think that's a really important piece in both life and in business, and tell your story. I think everybody has a story, and I'm so proud of what you're doing here because you're letting people tell their stories. But everybody has a story, and your business has a story, and I think that's an important element as well.
Thank you very much. And just as she said, we all have stories, and our stories are such that people can pick useful lessons from them. I always say that when you hear someone's story and certain mistakes the person has made, you pick lessons and ensure that you do not repeat those mistakes in your own life. And that's the reason why I even set up this whole podcast, for people to come and share their rich experiences. You've talked about your courses, and what I like about it is that it's online. So no matter where you are, I'm in Africa, I'm in Ghana. If I'm interested in it, I can still participate. And I know a lot of my listeners are scattered all over the world. So can you please walk us through the process? If someone is interested in enrolling on your courses, can you walk us through the process of enrolling on any of your courses?
Yeah, definitely. We've built all of our courses through a system called CourseCraft. And so you can find us there. And also marketcreativity.com is kind of our hub for all of our courses. But all of them are built through CourseCraft. It is most of our courses are in the $35 range. We try to keep it as inexpensive as possible. Once you purchase the course, each course is broken up into different lessons, and you do them at your own pace. So, if that means you have a kid and you're homeschooling because we live in this world of COVID and you can only do them at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, then you have the leisure to do that. We do encourage you to do them and complete them because you won't get the benefits if you don't. But they're all at your leisure. So we're living in a very weird world. Like nobody's lives are normal right now. And I've worked from home for years and people are like, oh, well, you're used to this. And I'm like, no, this is very different work from home experience. Like before I'd go sit at a coffee shop for 4 hours and work at a coffee shop, or I'd go to a restaurant and, have a lunch meeting and then work there for a couple hours after. Like this is very different for me too, even though I'm used to working from home. So, we wanted to make these as easy for people as possible. So, once you have access, you have access. And then of course you also have access to, you'll be added to our Facebook group, which is a private group only for people taking the courses. And then my mom and I will also be scheduling these live Zooms so people can kind of, come in and ask questions and get live interaction with us and feedback. I think, from a marketing perspective, the marketing world is very intense and very competitive, and there's not a lot of community. And that's something that we really wanted to bring to the table with these courses. It's not just to teach you all of the tools, but also to give you a place of support and community as you kind of walk this road.
We are just about wrapping up our conversation. But I cannot leave by asking for last words and pieces of advice for my listeners. So I'll start off with Bridgette. What are your last words? What advice do you want to offer my listeners before we sign off?
I would say, especially during COVID, breathe, take time to be thankful and have gratitude, and breathe, hope and know that there is a future. And you are strong enough to see that through, and take the classes.
Take the classes. Don't forget.
Yeah.
Well, it's only because a lot of us have a hard time focusing. And I think what this does is this gives you an opportunity to focus. You take one class and then the second one and then the third one, and then you're moving forward. And it gives you accountability and it gives you a way to focus in a time when we are not focusing very well because everything, we have a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic. So, I'm talking to somebody all the way on the other side of the world who absolutely knows what it feels like in Houston, Texas right now, because you're going through the exact same thing. So we have camaraderie in that, unfortunately. But breathe and know that there's hope. Take one step at a time, but take a step. Don't be still, and work on yourself as you're working on your business. Chris?
Yeah, do not lose hope, I think, is a huge do not lose hope is a huge part of this. And my last thing to leave with you, do not lose hope. I think my husband and I were talking, and we see a therapist every other week. We have since our house fire. Take care of your mental health. I said that once to somebody. I said, "Oh, I'll be back. I have to go to therapy." And they're like, "Oh, you didn't have to tell me that." And I was like, well, if I was going to go to the gym to work out my body, I'd have no problem telling you I'm going to go to the gym. Like, I'm going to therapy to work out my emotional mind. It's the same thing. If you don't have someone to talk to somebody. I think for us, going through the fire and that great tragedy greatly prepared us for this pandemic in a lot of ways. Like we have learned how to roll with the punches, if you will. We've learned how to kind of deal with this in some ways where I know so many people aren't and are experiencing a tragic event. That's what this is. I mean, let's be real. COVID is a tragic event. It has greatly changed the way we function and operate in society. And there's a lot that goes with that. And so I would highly just take care of your mental health. That's going to help you personally and help you in your small business. And don't lose hope, and make sure you find things that help you restore yourself. And that, I know, is incredibly harder in this situation we're in with the pandemic. I know some people are like, oh, I restore myself when I go get my nails done, or I restore myself when I go, shopping or whatever. And those are things we can't all do right now. So figure out what that thing is for you within the parameters that we have, and do that thing. Like, do not forget to restore yourself and take time for yourself. It's so important.
Thank you very much, Bridgette and Christina, for sharing your rich experiences with us.
Thank you for having us. It was great.
Sure. I wish you both
thank you very much.
best. I wish you both the very best.
Thank you very much.
This has been another exciting episode of the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. I'll come your way next time with another exciting episode. I remain your host, Kofi Animedu. Do stay safe, and let's continue to keep hope alive. Cheers.